since I've sort
Get
of done that.
moving. Um,
Okay. So here we are again, and I am so happy to be sitting down right now because I've spent the past couple of hours putting away all my Christmas decorations, and I try to put them away when Paul is out of the house because he would, of course, have suggestions for me, and it's easier if I just go ahead and do it when he's not in the room. So, anyway, I'm glad to be sitting down. All my
yeah.
Christmas decorations are away. I like to wait until Epiphany, which is JD's birthday, and
Okay.
so I'm all set with that. So JD's birthday, January 6th. So you
Wow.
must have some stories relative
Yeah.
to that. You want to reflect on that a little bit, given your history and
Not
background?
as much. Not as much from the day
Mhm.
because I was in the Los
Already.
Angeles office and I was home at the time when I was floored that that was even happening. Yeah, it was very much reminiscent of September 11th, where
Wow.
for me it was. I realized why in some moments I can be, for lack of better terms, heroic. Like everything that we did on September 11th, other emergency situations I've been in my life,
Hmm.
and why sometimes the anxiety comes back a little harder. And that is when you can see something, when something's happening and it's there and it's time to deal with it, like September 11th, like January 6th, like, various emergency situations in my protective career. It's time to go. There's no time to get scared.
Hmm. Hmm.
When Idalia came and I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning at low tide and saw it already up over the wall and in my backyard, creeping towards the back door, that caused a pucker factor. And that's why I've since decided that for the next storm like that, we're going to, sandbag where we can, and then we're getting out. There's nothing else I could have done if we would have stayed here. Like my next door neighbor said, they wanted to stay to save the house. Like, what are you going to hold it down so it doesn't float away? Who's going to
Yeah.
hold you?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, when January 6th happened, I was just in the disbelief.
Hmm.
Um, there was enough of a left leaning movement through most of the Los Angeles area that, because there were other similar riots throughout the country that are so much lesser known because they were so much smaller
Hmm.
and had much less effect on the rest of the country. Nothing really happened of size in Los Angeles, except people would get out to riot just because that's kind of like the thing they do out there sometimes. But it wasn't until 2 weeks later when I was standing on Pennsylvania Avenue and C Street at my post in the parade route. We had riot fences that were 15 feet tall at most spots, all around the Capitol, all the way down to the White House. That's 16 blocks
Wow.
and back. And not just one shoot, but, the whole mall. That whole big grass area was part of the fenced in space. And so nobody was getting in unless you came through a spot like I had, which was a vehicle checkpoint and had gates. Chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And so there was a pretty good presence of us at that location. Two of the guys that I was with was my boss from LA and another supervisor from LA. We were all just hump agents at that point, just, doing a job there. And there were some other officers from other agencies, local and state, whoever, everybody comes from all over the country for the inauguration. It's a huge manpower event. And I just turned and looked at them and said, he's going to get indicted, isn't he? And the first reaction they had was like, holy shit, did he just say that? And immediately after, there was like a calm, like, okay, nobody died from saying it. So I guess that means we can talk about it now. Now, here's the kicker to all that. Sitting here now, that I was talking about Donald Trump. Before I said that, we weren't talking about Donald Trump. Nobody said anything about Donald Trump. But all I said, he's going to get indicted, isn't he? Never mentioned a name, and they knew who I was talking about. And that's how obvious it was there to so many, people in the know. And DC, you're pretty much having a DC address gives you that because everybody talks about government shit. People think that it was the mafia that came up with the saying, three people can keep a secret if two of them are dead. That was really the intelligence community.
Well, I think it's Shakespeare
Yeah, possibly.
originally. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's older. Because I think there's a lot of memes and whatever of that same
Right.
quote from like the Wild West
Right.
and so
Right.
on.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Right. Right. hmm They're
but so yeah, I
appropriated
don't even think it was the
everywhere.
intelligence community
Yep.
either.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
they certainly believe that, especially in
Yep.
Washington,
Yep.
which is why they are so close to the vest because shit gets out.
hmm
And yeah, everybody knew. Yeah, I keep referencing um, Miles Taylor's podcast, The Whistleblowers.
Uh-huh.
A lot of that was common knowledge. A lot of his whole podcast was common knowledge to a lot of people in DC. Because on some level, they might have had a hand in it.
hmm
I mean, one of the episodes that he did on one of the women that was eventually who resigned on January 6th itself was one of the people that was chasing him earlier in the relationship. And then she finds herself being hunted by the Trump administration for protesting. This was wrong.
hmm
And so I that's I guess I can make this announcement today because it's very relevant. I am looking for Trump supporters.
Okay.
Honest for honest actual conversation. I'm
hmm
not, looking to make an ass out of them or anything or tell
hmm
them they're wrong or tell them
hmm
how stupid I think they are. Nothing like that. I might feel that way, but it's not what it's for. I really want to know what the appeal is today. With everything that you have the possibility of knowing, why do you still support this guy?
Do you think you'll get much beyond because Biden is a criminal?
I really don't know. I don't think Joe Biden is the squarest shooter ever. No decent president is. That's the point why they do actually have presidential immunity on some things. Because sometimes they break the law in the name of national security. You think invading Panama and taking Manuel Noriega into custody was legal? You think invading Iraq and taking Saddam Hussein into custody was legal? Or how about this one? Going into Pakistan for somebody else and not telling them about it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any problem with any of those three? Because in the name of national security and democracy and et cetera, we'd rather have that than abide by the law and still have the problem. As would, most likely, most of the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's presidential immunity. Overturning your own government, no. That's the whole point of having an election in the first place, is the peaceful transfer of power. And to have a peaceful revolution.
Well, we do live in interesting times, I'll say that. And you know what all happens in the next year is just what? The anticipation of knowing, uh, living through it.
So there's, with regards to post January 6th items, such as the Supreme Court taking on
Mm-hmm.
the case and so on, there's no way that they can have made, one, the rulings they've made already, or two, maintain their own self preservation by ruling in his favor.
So, what are you ready to make a prediction?
I wasn't sure if they would take the case or not, but I think they should. There've been other election cases that have gone right to the Supreme Court. Bush versus Gore.
Mm-hmm.
That one did go, I think, perhaps a little bit more politically. The court was a conservative one at the time, and it was a bit of a rushed, quick decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we certainly didn't turn out as bad as what we could be now. And in all actuality, I guess being on the winning side in that one, because I wasn't for Gore, I just couldn't get behind him. Um, and I knew at least, I could see already it was developing that Bush was admitting his um, immaturity to DC,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that while his dad spent a lot of time in DC, he did not. And so he was smart enough to bring a lot of experienced people to the table. Rumsfeld, Cheney,
Cheney.
and a bunch of others. So that was, and Gore, just the opposite. One of the highest approval ratings to this day is Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
But he tried to take some higher, holier than thou, higher road by not having Bill campaign for him because he wanted to distance himself from things like Monica Lewinsky
Oh.
and the impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
And it burned him badly. So, um,
Anyway,
I'm looking for
predicting the Supreme Court decision. What do you think? I mean, they're taking the case.
there's no way that they're going to side for him for two reasons. One, courts like that like having their authority. If they grant him the presidential immunity that he says he has, he's a dictator. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what he was trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
You think General Milley is going to use wannabe dictator just because he's pissed off that day? You don't think he maybe sat down and really thought that speech out and then gave it to somebody else just in case? That was blessed by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
John Kelly, General Kelly, Secretary Kelly, Chief Kelly. He's they're all, any general like that is very chain of command
Mm-hmm.
and would never and have not. They all spoke out quietly to each other about the president years ago. They'll never do that publicly until it's time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it is amazing to recognize that it is time.
Ugh,
Now,
past time.
yeah, I had read somewhere or heard maybe someone suggest that if the decision from the Supreme Court isn't 9-0, it would be a concern. How do you feel about that?
Yes, because it was already 9-0. Now that was where I was going.
Okay.
Reason number two. Reason number one is if they say yes, he has presidential immunity for that. They just gave carte blanche to Biden now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hunter Biden's off the table. That's now done.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Kushner's now back on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to be fast tracked to a conviction.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one of the future president's advisors out off the table.
And the Biden
And
indictment goes away?
well, I mean, they still haven't done it. Oh, you mean the Hunter? You mean the Hunter Biden indictment?
No, the Joe Biden.
Well, yeah, exactly. They still haven't done it.
Oh,
The impeachment, you mean?
that's what I meant.
The impeachment?
Wrong I
Yeah,
word. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, an indictment wouldn't be far either,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they're granting Trump to have. But if they do that, then it's fair game for the current sitting president. And if it's okay for Trump to do what he clearly did on video and audio and everything,
Mm-hmm.
then there's nothing stopping from Biden from just flat out whacking Trump. Where's the line?
Mm-hmm. Now
An
that is
overthrow
an
of the
interest.
government at the Capitol,
Yep.
where moments later he told them to go to the Capitol and fight like hell?
Mm-hmm.
What is that supposed to mean to a rowdy crowd?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to stand there and call their congressman.
No, I don't think they are.
And the second one was they already voted 9-0 against Trump because it was pushed to him, like similarly to the Bush versus Gore. It was pushed to them 3 years ago, and their response unanimously was just no. There was no decision. There was no opinion. Or there was a decision, obviously. There was no opinion. There
No
was no
oral
dissent.
arguments.
Nothing. It was just the decision was, we're not hearing it. It's not getting to us. Figure it out.
Mhm.
Which
Well,
essentially
like you
meant
said, I'm
over.
surprised they took the case.
I'm not.
I mean, it signals to me that they want to be involved, and that
I think they want to end it. Because the other thing
really.
is, yes, because the other thing is, remember what I said earlier, courts like that like having their authority, and they don't like having it
And
challenged.
that overrules their fear.
Yeah, they don't want to lose their job. They can't. There's a lot of people on that court that are in a lot of trouble.
Uh-huh.
It's not just Clarence Thomas. I'm brain farting. I think Alito was one.
Mhm.
But there were a bunch that had some vacations that they can't explain and other things. Yet Bob Menendez from New Jersey is soon going to go on trial for that very same thing,
Mm-hmm.
accepting gifts. His a little bit more different in that they're from two other countries, but still politically oriented. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the Supreme Court, where it's your job to remain impartial.
I haven't
And
been
we never
seeing a
talked
lot of
about,
that.
I'm sorry,
I
I
haven't
talked
been
over you, say it
seeing a
again.
lot. Yeah, I haven't been seeing a lot of impartiality.
Yeah, that's
Am I wrong?
I forget what the decision was, or what the case was. Oh, it was Michigan or Minnesota,
Michigan,
or
maybe?
maybe Colorado. It was one of the state Supreme Courts who made, one of the election decisions. And the newspaper article that I was reading came back with this liberal court made this decision. Like, why is that an issue? Well, because it is,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't used to be. And it might be the right decision, but we still got to rip that band-aid off and throw that out there and address that elephant in the room. And so my open call to Trump supporters is a serious one. I want to sit down and talk with you. I want to know what you're thinking. I'm debate because this is still very new. I'm debating as to if I'm going to present anything in return, like, but that's not true. That's been debunked, blah, 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 whatever. I'm not going to, because I don't want to get into an argument. I just really want to probably put together a series of questions
So you're just truly
based on what you know. Do you
collecting
think Joe Biden? Go ahead. What?
information. So you're just
Yeah,
trying to truly collect information.
and it'll probably be more than just that. It'll probably broaden. For example, based on what you know, is Hunter Biden guilty of anything you've heard him charged with? Drugs, weapons, illegal business dealings, even though his occupation is that he's an international business attorney. And then ask them the same question about Jared Kushner.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay for him to accept $2 billion
And the
while
Saudis.
overseas on official business representing the president of the United States
Mm-hmm.
from
So
a
you
country?
plan to ask that? That's a question you plan to ask your Trump
Not
supporters.
that'll be later. I mean, obviously, the first ones will be what is your reasoning for supporting
Yeah.
Donald Trump? Is it the same reason from 2020 if applicable, or 2016 if applicable? Maybe they didn't support him then. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
converted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. You're a new kind of stupid.
Well,
But
I'm eager to hear the stories or to listen to. No, I want your analysis. I'm not sure I can bear to hear the reasons, but I will be really interested in what you learn from
yeah.
your interviews with people, and I hope people call into you. I I hope people. I really hope people do. Are you putting? Have you put it out there in? Have you put the challenge out there in your radio station and in the middle? I know
Not
you're a
yet.
little
No.
behind
I'm
up the middle.
no. I held off just because I've got a little less than a year.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not expecting this to be done in the next 2 weeks,
Okay, but you're
and
starting.
I do want to plan it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I do want to. I want it to be an intelligent
Well,
project
let me
conversation.
ask you, and maybe this is a stupid question, and feel free to say so, and decide not to to respond. But
I mean,
what do you
look at what we're
anticipate the
dealing with right
reasons
now,
be?
Jane, is what is a stupid question today?
Well, there you go.
Look
So,
at what we're dealing with.
what are you
I thought
anticipating the
January
answers
6th
to
would be
be?
our country's rock bottom. I thought January 6th would be our country's
Mm-hmm.
rock bottom. And you
Mm-hmm.
and David Beckmeyer just shrugged and said, yeah, no, apparently not.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, gang, we did it again. We talked long enough to create an episode before actually starting the episode. So, this will be an intermission. Take your bathroom break, refill your coffee or cocktail, and we'll see you back here for part 2.